It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
As for investors, I'm not expecting to see any serious comeback from them over the next 12 months. In fact, a lot of investors I've been speaking with are rethinking things, especially with the recent changes to the Tenancy Act. So right now, first-time buyers still have a window of opportunity to get in the market.
And that is Paul O'Riordan, and we'll get back to that conversation with Paul in just a moment as we welcome you back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast with more of your property insights, interviews, connecting you to real estate data and trends across Australia 7 days a week. The weekend is turned up. It is a Saturday morning, July the 12th. And good morning to you, Stephanie, in Caloundra on the Sunshine Coast. Thank you for your email. You were pleased to see the RBA hold off on lowering the cash rate, you said. You are also a mortgage-ready person, ready to buy, but are finding it at the moment extremely difficult to find the right property. All of your family, you say, are there in Caloundra, but you are looking at more regional areas north of Caloundra and the Sunshine Coast to get something a little bit bigger and with a section to move around in. You are going it alone without any of your parents' support. And you say that you love Caloundra, but a property for you is long-term. You're in your early 30s and looking to start a family with your partner. And then you go on to say, thanks for the daily real estate information. Big-time listener in caps. Well, it's nice to have you listening there in Caloundra, but maybe not for much longer. Now, it used to be not so long ago that people were moving to Caloundra to live because of the cheaper property prices and make the numbers work. Sadly, though, that isn't the case. Well, I say not that long ago, but it was probably pre-pandemic. Let us know how you get on there, Stephanie, in terms of what happens next. And if you have got a property story like Stephanie, we would love to hear it. You can email through myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. Well, let's catch up on our Saturday morning with Paul O'Riordan. He is the principal of O'Riordan Real Estate, who has his finger firmly on the pulse in his unique region. And I think you can probably draw some comparisons there to where you are, Paul. A lot of people moving out of Sydney into the Blue Mountains, not unlike Stephanie.
Absolutely, Craig. Look, good to be with you again this morning. And look, with the mountains, we're seeing really kind of 70% plus buyers that are active up here coming from the Sydney Metro Basin. A lot of similarities there with Stephanie.
And as we wrap up another financial year, Australia's property market continues to show a patchwork, I think, of performance. While certain areas have definitely softened, others have surged ahead with some impressive double-digit growth. One such area worth a closer look is where you are, is the Blue Mountains, just west of Sydney, known, of course, for its lifestyle appeal, historic charm and evolving buyer interest. Let's throw this at you, Paul, this morning as we look back across the 24-25 financial year. How did the average sale price for houses in the Blue Mountains stack up against previous years?
Look, they did pretty well. So, look, the Blue Mountains, a similar story is played out as with most other areas in Australia. The strong COVID peak of 21-22, where every suburb in the mountains grew by about 30 to 40%, followed by the 2-year abyss, correcting markets, sliding house prices, very cautious buyers, and, of course, the ever-increasing interest rates. Comparing the average sale price data, though, for FY25 shows some suburbs have come back from that abyss and have well and truly rebounded. In the mid-mountains, the average sale price generally returned to or has exceeded the previous COVID highs, Woodford being the highest performing, seeing a 9% growth over the last 12 months. The trend is similar in most of the upper mountains as well, with North Leura showing an increase of 29% from last year. And for me, that's showing buyer confidence is returning and there's movement across all price brackets.
So did that surprise you over the last 12 months in terms of that movement?
Look, it did. The numbers did. There was increased buyer demand, and you could see that at open homes, but until the numbers are in, the numbers aren't in. So when I was reviewing all of that information, it really did surprise me to see that growth across a lot of different suburbs.
And when it comes to buyer preferences this past year, was there, for instance, a particular category or style of home, like a character cottage, or a family home or lifestyle acreage that consistently attracted the most sales in the region?
Yeah, look, it did. So look, out of the 1,204 homes sold across the mountains this last year, the clear front runners were 3-bedroom, 1-bath homes and 4-bedroom, 2-bath homes. So around 28% of the total market was 3-bed, 1-bath and 33% were 4-bed, 2-bath. Other configurations tended to be a little bit more location specific. So the upper mountains, where there's a lot more character cottage, little quaint weatherboards, there was a high proportion of smaller homes up there with 2-bed and even 1-bed properties making up about 16% of the total sales. And that's due to the older and more retired demographic as well. And on the other hand, the lower mountains had the greater share of larger homes with big 5-bed plus properties accounting for around 15% of all sales. And that's largely due to the lower mountains having a higher family demographic.
We are talking to Paul O'Riordan on our Saturday morning. When we come back, we're going to ask the question about property cycles bringing its own defining patterns, and we'll also look ahead to the financial 26 year. We'll do that after this.
Every morning from 6 a.m, we bring you the latest real estate news with diverse perspectives from leading industry experts. We deliver the most property podcasts across Australia every week.
And right now it is time for another property tip. And recently we were talking to Michelle May there in Sydney. She's a buyer's agent. And you've got a really good one for us this morning. Tell us about your property tip.
Okay, so the one thing you need to do is throw price guides out of the window. Do not look at price guides when you're looking to purchase a property. The only section you need to be looking at is the sold section on the real estate portals. Put in your budget, put in your area that you want to be in, even look at the map function. Don't look at anything else and see what you could have bought in the last 2 months. In a rising market, it's really important not to go back too long. And there'll be a running theme. So it may be that in your budget, you can buy 3 bedrooms with off-street parking, or you may only be able to buy a 2-bedroom house in a better street. So don't give in to the wishful thinking, because that is what sales marketing campaigns are all about. But just educate yourself in the sold section and then target those kinds of properties only to buy successfully.
And with lead-in time, start going to open homes, because you get this double whammy effect where if you've actually been in that property, you've quizzed the agent, and then you wait to see it sell. There's 2 ends of the spectrum then that you're observing, having been in the property, having been told a story or two, and then seeing the final outcome.
Absolutely. I think that's a brilliant thing to add to that tip.
From the emotion of property, the economic inflation, managing your expectations, lack of stock, price growth, construction appetite, days on the market. Stay informed with us and know your property.
And the weekend is here. If you're getting ready to head out, maybe to an auction, an open home, whatever the case is, continued negotiations over a property that you've got your heart set on, whatever the case is this weekend, good luck and make it a busy one. Paul O'Riordan in the Blue Mountains is with us this morning, and every property cycle, Paul, now it does bring its own defining patterns. Over the course of the FY25 year, what was the most prominent market trend that you noticed there in the Blue Mountains, be it price movement, buyer sentiment or days on market?
What really amazed me this last year is the entry-level price properties in the more affordable mid-mountains and upper mountains. In FY24, for instance, 30% of all homes sold in the upper mountains were under $800,000. In FY25, that number dropped to 22%, and even though there was a 16% more property sold. The mid-mountains was even more surprising. So look, FY24, 40% of homes sold were under 800K, so that's pretty affordable. But in FY25, that number halved to only 20% of sales came into that 800,000 mark, and that's with a 13% increase in property sold. To me, that's absolutely incredible, and it shows how much growth there has been, and it's mostly been driven, Craig, by first-time buyers. There is very little investor activity in these suburbs right now.
And looking ahead now, let's project into FY26. How do you see the Blue Mountains market performing coming up over the next 12 months? Which, for instance, which broader economic or local factors will have, do you think, the biggest impact on the direction of your local market?
Well, look, I've polished off my crystal ball, and it tells me, look, no surprises, interest rates are going to be the major factor with price movement in the mountains across these next 12 months. As for investors, I'm not expecting to see any serious comeback from them over the next 12 months. In fact, a lot of investors I've been speaking with are rethinking things, especially with the recent changes to the Tenancy Act. So right now, first-time buyers still have a window of opportunity to get in the market. And look, I think the biggest thing will be the opening of the Western Sydney Aerotropolis next year, and that's going to start shifting things. It'll absolutely create more demand for property in the lower and mid-mountains. Of course, the big unknown is how the noise and overall development will affect the quiet, peaceful lifestyle that we're known for up here, and we don't quite know what impact that'll have on property values. It's a bit of a wait and see on that end. But that said, that could be the thing that sparks renewed interest from investors, especially with out-of-air buyers seeing potential in the increased demand. So whatever happens, Craig, one thing's for sure, the real estate world is never boring, and I can't wait to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, never boring. Hey, I've got to ask you this, especially since we are in winter now. You know, people make the move to the Blue Mountains. I think some people get it into their minds that, oh no, it's just too cold for me. I wouldn't be able to live in the Blue Mountains. But once somebody acclimatizes, especially around winter, they can love it for all sorts of different reasons. So have you got any information to offer up to people when it comes to that whole, oh, it's winter, maybe a little bit too cold? Because what's moving is property prices. That is clear. People are moving there and they're not put off by the winter.
Look, they're not. And look, let's face it, Ugg boots are a very Australian thing and they're sold across the entire country. I think coming to the Blue Mountains, you actually get to wear them for a couple of months a year. So that has to be a plus on every different measurement available, I'd have thought.
Nice way to end it on gumboots. All right, enjoy your weekend there in the Blue Mountains and look forward to chatting again soon.
Thank you very much, Craig. Great to be with you.
Explore new property destinations where you could live with exclusive interviews covering real estate news and market insights.
Will people be able to, do you think, handle a new build given the chaos that has been shown for so many years with these renos that they've done?
You needed to have a fair amount of skill to become a contestant on that show. So we then started to really see these contestants become more project managers rather than hands-on. But they started to do less and less of the actual hands-on work themselves. So they're directing other people to do the work.
And I wonder whether or not the block is still relevant for people interested in property tips and information on, how to do these renos, etc. Or is it just TV reality drama about personalities and ratings, which of course the producers are gunning for?
And it does become much more about the behaviour of the contestants, the blow-up, the argument. So when people watch that, they're seeing a lot more drama unfold, and there's always a villain. I don't know if you've noticed that.
One of the biggest mistakes that I see people do, and it just shows the competition where you're at, is bringing out your calculator and calculating things right towards the end there, because it just shows that you're coming to your limit, and that next bid that they put in could really knock you out.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.